Hello, and welcome to an overview of Mimic content marketing. This is a 10-round simulation of content marketing. You are in the simulation as the new content marketing manager. And we're just going to go through kind of the mechanics of this and the setup. We're not going to go through every single round, but as the kind of the brain trust behind the creation of this, I figured I would share some of my tips and tricks and what the general idea is behind this in order to succeed. So I've already opened the Mimic Content Marketing program here on the website, and this is a good little overview. The introduction section is actually pretty content heavy because you need to not only learn about your role as the new hire at this fake company, but also you need to learn a little bit about the content strategy and the brand because you are going to be both creating and assigning content assignments for the brand. Those content assignments will then be promoted via various channels, and then you'll have some KPIs, some goals that you're going to be trying to attain. So, if we want to start with what is the general goal? You are a new content marketing manager for Buoy Supply Company. We'll talk about that in a minute. The overarching goal is to increase the company's overall conversion rates, which means, as mentioned earlier in the semester, the most people that you want to get to take a predetermined action on the website and grow its total social media subscribers, podcast subscribers, and email subscribers. So when you look at how the simulation scores, it is a simulation. So it's the sim that is actually the computer that's going to be grading you. You're going to be graded on those numbers at the bottom. And as all Stukent simulations are set up, it's ultimately decided by incoming revenue. And look, I understand that content marketing is rarely that cut and dry, and it's very difficult to attribute content creation to very specific ROI. Otherwise, content marketing would be a lot bigger than it is. However, in this instance, we needed a very specific KPI to score you on. Now, in terms of the scoring in this simulation, I am going to take those other numbers into consideration. So it is good to also see the value and the true change in social media subscribers, podcast subscribers, and email subscribers. Those are all methods of content distribution, and they are all very important to keep an eye on as you go through each round. Now, what is Buoy Supply Company? We'll come back to this in just a minute. Actually, we'll go forward to it. You can get an overview of Buoy here in this section. And actually, really quick, this is your little letter, your opening note. Each round, you might get a little message here from somebody on the team, and they'll talk to you about kind of what you're tasked with doing. But what Buoy is if you've done any other Stukent simulations in the past, they sell backpacks. And not just backpacks, but a wide variety of them. And they send them, they sell them to all sorts of different core audiences. These are the core values. They matter a little bit. They really don't matter that much in the grand scheme of things for this simulation. However, the number one thing that Buoy does, and you can watch this video, is to see they sell bags that have a certain personality to them. And if you want to see kind of more about what that is and what those target audiences are, that is what this content marketing guide is for. So you'll see there's an overview of what are the content marketing goals. Here are the baseline numbers that they have on all of their different channels. And then you have their core personas. These are personas for their major type of buyers. These are very similar, again, to past other Stukent simulations. So you have Back to School Mindy, City Hopper Sue, Up and Comer Raj and Daypacker Tom. So you have four individuals, all a little bit different. On one side, you have people that range the gamut from being into yoga and traveling all the way to the type of person that is more of a business person. Now, you will see an overview of the goals and how Buoy sets this up, what they are looking at in terms of search intent. So we have not gotten to the SEO chapter in this course yet, so you can use this. Of course, obviously, if you've taken any SEO course in the past, you'll understand what these are. And then you'll look at the different content types. So each round, these are the types of content that can be created, very similar to how the courseware lays it out. You also have these content preferences. You can come back to this throughout the the simulation. And I do think that this is a very important part, because in each round, you'll be choosing an audience who you're going to be marketing to, and then you need to create content for that audience. So it's kind of a mix and match game. So for example, if you're going to go after up and comer Raj, you probably don't want to create a video for him, strangely enough. If it's Daypacker Tom, on the other hand, that person does want video first. Now, again, these are approximations. And while this is not super representative of the real world, at the same time, this is how the simulation is going to work. And a key core concept of the simulation is understanding the audience and how they consume different types of content. The other thing, too, is you're going to be choosing what type of content you're creating in your content marketing. Now, so far through the courseware, we've talked about how content marketing is really more about these second two, lifestyle and travel, in that they're not overly promotional. There is a time and a place for promotional content, of course, as we've seen in some certain situations. But when you're creating content, you usually don't want it to be too salesy. People are looking for content that is going to provide them value. And an article that just talks about how great that exact company's products are generally doesn't provide much value to an audience. Now, if you look at what the keywords are, this is more for SEO purposes. In blogging, this is very important to utilize. In video, a little bit, but then the other two, infographics and podcasting, not as important. Keywords are important to include in your titles and descriptions, but really, this is more for blogging than other sites. Now, I will say also this. The keywords are also useful in terms of search intent, because if you're creating content and you're going to create something about, I don't know, say something for back to school Mindy, right? You have some good keywords towards the top that are really for her. Backpacks for school, backpack, purse, cool backpack, laptop backpack, some terms such as that. And these go all the way down, right? There's a ton of them. There's several pages of them. You don't have to look at all of them. It's not important to memorize them or anything. And again, you can always go back to this later. Now, for the conversion rate and content types, these are important. It's not important to, again, know all of them. If anything, it's more important to know the general trends. So what does this mean? That means if you're going to assign a blog post, like you're going to be assigning blog posts to people, if you're going to be assigning blog posts to, say, one of your content creators, signing a blog post of less than 500 words probably isn't going to lead to much. But if you assign a blog post of 1,000 words, that's going to be almost as valuable. It's actually going to be just as valuable as a blog post with 2,000 words, at least in this situation. The same goes for video and for podcasting. These three types of content and their conversion rates are they are based on some of the research that I've done in terms of what other companies have run into in the past. And they are meant to mimic what the real world is generally like. I'm not saying that this is an absolute, I wouldn't even say this is too much of a rule of thumb, but it is a little bit in that, but for podcasting, for example, if you're looking at creating a podcast, anything under 10 minutes is probably going to be pretty low. But then also there's going to be a drop off, and there's going to be kind of a plateau at some point. And this is important because when you are assigning content out, you at the same time are going to have a budget. And the more content that you are assigning, the more expensive it's going to get. So if you take for blogging, for example, a lot of times writers will assign on a per word basis. And it's usually like cents per word, right? Like 20 cents per word or something. But you'll see pretty quickly, okay, hey, if I assign a 1,000 word blog post, it's going to, if it costs you, 150 bucks, and then you see a 2,000 word blog post costs you 400 bucks, right? What, at some point you're going to need to prioritize your budget and understand that, hey, a 1,000 word blog post is going to be just as valuable in terms of conversions as the 2,000 word blog post. Now, you may or may not run into that type of budgeting issue. From what I have seen, there's generally enough budget to go around where if you are, if you're just assigning videos all day, then yes, you're gonna run out of money pretty quick. But as long as you are limiting yourself to only one or two more expensive content types, you're okay in terms of like blog posts and your budgeting. The infographic one, I think they just turned it into a bar chart because one, there's no sliding scale, but then also, it's really, you're not dealing with actual absolutes here, extra small, small, medium, large. I really don't think the infographic piece is that important. Just know, don't ask for an extra large infographic and don't ask for an extra small one. Now, on social media, you have all these different audiences as well. These are good to come back to later on when it comes time to create social media content, or not social media content, but promote something on social media. They are good. The number one thing, though, you want to think about is the audiences from before. That's the number one thing to look at. And then secondly is to look here at the audiences separately. So, that there's that part. And then you have some more keywords. This is based on interests. Take a look at these notes. This was actually added in by the Stukent team, so I didn't actually do much here. But they are looking in these instances, and again, it says this in the introduction. You really want to look at two things in addition to the keyword. If you're considering the keyword, you want to see what the volume is and the difficulty. Anything with a difficulty above what does it say? 50%? No, anything with a difficulty above 40% is going to have diminishing returns. So, for example, most of these you're not going to want to bother with. Now, best camping in Yellowstone, 31%. You see it's a long tail keyword, very specific, things like that. There's a ton of those included. Now, here are some looks back to the courseware so far. Blogging best practices, podcasting best practices, video best practices, and it looks like they did not include infographic, but that's okay. Those are really the big three types of content that you'll be creating / assigning. And that's really the introduction part. Again, you can come back to these later. You don't need to memorize this. You don't need to necessarily download it, but it is important for you to kind of get a good feel for what that is and how they can impact the way that your content converts. Now, each round you'll get a little scenario. You'll usually have a video and some assignments, and then you'll also have a little message in the inbox. So you're going to read through these. In the first round, for example, you're going to create content requests, which means you're going to be assigning content out to some creators, and then you're going to write a blog post yourself. Now, this is not going to be like what you see in the assignments in the courseware. You're not writing something from scratch. We'll show you what that is momentarily. In the inbox, they're going to give you your week's budget and the amount of time you have to allocate for the content creators. So this is kind of a pick and choose thing in terms of, okay, I have $1,000 and I have 40 hours because it takes people time to create stuff. What do I need to do? And here's all the, here's your content marketing guide again. And then you're going to first off do the content request section. So it goes through the instructions, you have your steps, and you start here with schedule content work requests. You're going to start with your target audience. The inbox at the beginning of each round may want you to focus on one. But but it depends on what the round is. You're going to select an audience. You're going to check your search intent, as well as the goal for the article or for the content. Today, let's say we're going to go with attention, right? You want to get people in. You just want to reach a new audience and get people in there. This is important. What you want to make sure that these match. Case in point, attention and transactional should not go together. Absolutely not. These two should go together. Maybe these two, but you want to make sure that the step in the AIDA funnel and the intent of what the searchers are going to be doing, those need to also be aligned. Chances are attention and informational are good to go. Then you have your content type. Key things to remember: blog posts are the cheapest, videos are the most expensive. Also, they take time. So you have 40 hours to assign to your content creator, right? A blog post is going to be a lot less expensive in terms of time than videos. So say I go with blog post. Now you want your focus. Again, remember what the search intent was that you selected, and remember what the AIDA funnel step is that you also are going for. I selected attention, and I also selected informational. Thus, promotional would not be a good match, because promotional means I'm trying to sell something. You're probably not going to get a lot of conversions when you have a promotional article being put in front of people that have never heard of your brand. Rather, let's go with one of these other two. The same goes for the keywords. Because I selected a blog post, these are going to be keywords that are going to be optimized within the article. Chances are it'll be in the headline. It'll also be in the subhead, alt text, things like that. So it really can be anything that you want, but this is where you need to think back to the audience. I selected up-and-comer Raj. He is more into the business scene. He's somebody that is kind of a millennial. So for example, what wouldn't work for him? Best hiking backpacks. That does not work for up-and-comer Raj. Best professional work bag, though, that might work. You can select more than one keyword. Or no, you can't. Sorry. You select your keyword here. You only have so many keywords to select. So best professional work bag is probably good for him. You could do best professional bag if you want, but this is where you want to look back at the content guide and look at the search terms and double check what that volume is and what that keyword difficulty is. Chances are the more long tail the keyword is, so 4 words like this one, the better off you're going to be. But don't take my word for it. I would suggest going back and double checking the content guide. You want to just make sure that there is a volume that is usable, which means more than like 100, and that it's not a keyword that has a difficulty ranking of like 75%. This is what SEMrush does. This is what a lot of those sites do, where they will look at what's currently ranking and the sites that are there on the SERPs, and then they will assess how difficult it is for you to rank well on search engines. So I went with professional work bag. Then when you put in your title, you want to make sure that that keyword is in the title. So, and this would be the same for the video. Let's say top 10 best professional work bags. It's okay if it's plural. So now I'm looking at this though, and I think I'm going to change my focus, because you don't need to, if it's travel, I don't want travel about professional work bags, especially if my person is up and comer Raj. If it was Apac or Tom, it would work really well, but I picked Raj. So I put the keyword that I selected in the title. Now I select the package. What is it that I want in terms of what the content creator is going to do? The first thing you want to look at, what's included in the package, what's the cost, and what's the time. When you have something like 40 hours available to you, I strongly do not recommend ordering a blog post that only has one other piece of content with it. So like, for example, a $300, 1,000 word blog post with an infographic, 10 hours. That's not very cost effective. However, package 4, you have 500 words, an infographic, and a video for only $100 more in less time. That's pretty good. But if we look back at what the content guide showed us, the content guide showed us that 500 words is going to have a lower conversion rate. So we may not see the same type of payoff. Now, obviously, there's only a $100 difference and actually 2 hours saved. So, you can still, I'd say you could still go with it. But in this case, I would just make sure that you are getting the best bang for your buck. When I look at this, to be honest, I would probably still go for package 4 because it's not the most expensive in terms of time and it's not the most expensive in terms of money. I may see not a lot of conversions, but I got a video and an infographic out of that, which are going to help. If I had not to make any definite kind of sweeping claims here, but if I'm comparing these two, I think this is actually a better bang for your buck because you have more time, and you will likely run out of time and costs around the same period. But then also, I just have more content here. A video, in addition to infographic, is pretty powerful. An infographic is what it is. A lot of things come with it. But the more content pieces you can get, and especially if it's at that kind of cost, the better off you are. So let's say I pick that package. I continue. The final step is, what do you want to happen on social media? Where do you want it to get promoted? Personally, I always will go with thinking about, once again, the audience. We've up through chapter 10. At that point, you should have a good idea of what those social media audiences are. You can check back at the content guide and take a look and see, where does Up and Comer Raj fit in those audiences? Because I know him pretty well, I'm going to go with LinkedIn and I'm going to go with YouTube because I have a video that's coming in there with it. Actually, I'm going to go with Facebook and Instagram. And you have to click off if you want to toggle. See, there. And I often will want to include an email. Actually, I would say you almost always want to include an email with the social media distribution. If you end up with like 10 blog posts or something and around, okay, you don't need to do an email every single time. But in this case, we only have a $1,000 budget, which means I'm only going to get probably a maximum of 2 other pieces of content after this. An email, which we know is has the highest return on your investment, should be a no-brainer. It also doesn't cost any money to add an email to this. But once again, we want to have an email list that is associated with our actual user, who is the target audience, and a call to action that we think is going to actually resonate with them. Now, usually the call to action will align with one of the KPIs. This is not promotional content. We are not trying to sell anything in the email. We are just driving the attention phase. Now, I will say with the email article is the email is getting sent to your existing email subscribers, which means it's not going to really work in the attention phase. And that you can choose to go that route where you're like, hey, I'm creating a blog content that's not for existing customers. This is an attention phase type of piece. So I don't need to include an email. That's a fair assessment. The way I look at it, though, is it doesn't hurt. I don't see why not. Why not include the email? Now, if the article though was written for the attention phase, I would not, for example, go with like get 50% off or shop now. Generally, in that case, I go with one of 3 things. 1, subscribe. Subscribe is an easy thing. You can get some people on social media. You can get usually the subscribe piece is for video and for podcasts, and we have a video that comes with ours. You can go to learn more. That's what's the word I'm looking for? You can't lose with that one because that's a very nice broad one. And then you can always think about something like download now. I mean, in this case, there's nothing to download, so maybe not, but it's there. I guess the question is, in this case, what are they downloading? Which is probably nothing. So really, I would actually backtrack that and say you can go one of 2 ways. I'm going to go with learn more. I think that is a great fallback. Can't go wrong, and it's not overly salesy. In the email subject line, per best practices in the email chapter, is you need to be really attention grabbing. And I would highly recommend putting in, including the keywords if you can. You could always just copy and paste the blog title. In this case, I'm not going to quite do that. I'm just going to say 10 epic professional work backpacks you need, or no, we'll say this. You need one of, there is a maximum number of characters. I'm just going to stick with that. 10 epic professional work backpacks. Now let's check our email list. Let's remember up-and-comer Raj and where he fits. Email list 1, customers who purchased outdoor backpacks, not Raj. Email list 2, female, no. Customers who signed up for Buoy's monthly newsletter, and this is male. Okay, maybe we'll go with that. Now, here's another thing. Remember email list 3, they've already signed up for Buoy's monthly newsletter. So something like subscribe, you would have to make sure that your email subject line would also include something like the video or the podcast, but another time. Go to save. Here's what you have left. You can edit it if you need. You can cancel it. And then you would create another one for the same week. And actually, I will. I'm just going to go to the next step. I'm not going to go create another one because I did want to show creating the blog post. All right. Next up, you're going to create your blog post. As you can see here, you are writing the blog post, but it's all contained within the Buoy content builder. The way that it starts is just content. You don't have to create the subject line or the title right now. The one thing I will say here is just remember the audience is probably going to be different than what you selected when you were actually assigning out the content. So you'll type in your article here. They assign you the keywords. So keywords are travel destinations. Okay. That's a weird keyword. 500 plus, so pretty low requirements. Brand awareness. The best warm weather travel destinations. They kind of give you your title. And from there, you just go in and build it. It's important to follow the blogging best practices here. For example, if your blog article is just 500 words without any paragraph breaks, you're probably not going to see any conversions. If your blog article is nothing but, if it's one sentence and then like a new paragraph every time, same thing. That's too much white space. So you just write a blog article like you normally would. And the key element here, though, is to also make sure that you include your travel destination keyword a couple of times. And after that, you're going to submit it. Sorry. This is not my blog post. You're going to have to make sure to publish it. Make sure that you say, okay, then you have it. Then you'll go to submit. That is it. Then you are done with the first round. And that is an overview of each round and how they work. I will say in other rounds, you will have to do other things. You will have to create a video. You may have to create a podcast. And in those cases, they work very similar to how the assignments work in the courseware, in that it's not about necessarily the super high quality, but rather the content that you're creating. A lot of this content you end up getting peer reviewed by others in the group. And it's not like they can sabotage your grade or anything, but they can at least help, and they at least give it a quick review and give you some feedback. The last thing I want to address here is that as you go through, you have access to the content marketing guide here in the resources so that you can always check in and see the content support. This is a very lengthy content guide, but I did want to just show it to you again because of its importance in this content marketing simulation. when you are creating content, assigning content, strategizing in content, it is of the most, it is of paramount importance. It is paramount, I should say, to know your target audience and who you're creating content for. And when you know your target audience, you don't just know who it is and the stuff that you see about this person up here, but also what are the, like, how do they best engage with it? How does this target audience convert? How can you get them to convert? In the instance of Up and Comer Raj from earlier, we know he's a business professional. You know that he is a little bit older, and we saw that he doesn't really resonate. Video doesn't resonate the best with him. So it's important to keep those in mind when you're assigning that content out. That's why I went with the blog post. It was nice that I had a video with it, just because it's a good deal. But then also I assigned the social networks that he was most familiar with. And using the content guide is going to be really important for that. I also picked keywords that that were in line with what his interests are. Because the other thing is search intent. Up and Comer Raj is not going to search for outdoor travel backpacks. He's not going to go for the best one. He's probably not going to read an article on the best warm weather travel destinations. He's going to see more about his day to day and the kind of learn about the stuff that is tangentially related to Buoy backpacks that can help him in his regular daily life. Things about work, things about his mobility within the city, in his business, things like that. Because when it all comes down to it, you need to make sure that your content is delivering value to your target audience. And as long as you do that, you will be okay when it comes to the simulation. There's not a ton of science. There isn't a ton of rocket science here. As long as you can connect the dots with your audience and you're creating content that makes sense and logically fits for the target that you either choose or is assigned to you, you're going to be okay. And, that wraps up the overview here. I know it's kind of a lengthy video, but I think it's a helpful one. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me as the creator here, the original creator of this. I take great pride in the work I've done, and I've already worked with Stukent on strategizing a new plan to even update it further, specifically on the social media side, and how you can see better results in the fruits of your labor. So thank you for watching, and feel free to reach out with any questions you may have.